I just want to set the background. I just want to place fisheries within the context of Article 246 of the Indian Constitution and Article 243. So you can see that if you look at the union list, so that includes fisheries beyond the territorial waters, that is 12 miles and beyond, is what comes under the union list. And then you have the state list, which has fisheries. And then you have the concurrent list, which includes decent work, for example, trade union, social security and social insurance, employment issues, welfare of labor, conditions of work. All these are coming under list 3. And then if you look at the Panchayat list, Article 243G, that's also very important because it also has fisheries, so at the very local level. And it also talks about food processing, housing, drinking water, poverty alleviation, education, health, sanitation, family welfare. So if you want to see fisheries from a human development perspective, I think, especially from a bottom-up perspective, it's very important also to engage with Article 243G, the Panchayat Raj, and its kind of entries. And it's quite interesting to note that, for example, fisheries in the Panchayat list is often not really invoked by Panchayats. In fact, we organized a workshop a couple of years ago, and it became very clear that many Panchayats are not interested in looking at fisheries within their kind of domain, although there is a legal jurisdiction over this activity. And then I just want to reiterate what Siddharth was saying. I think we should also be very careful about the figures we use, because I think the figures are very confusing. So I have tried to look at both the production figures and landed value. So I think it's very important to look at both. So if landed value is the price that fishers get as soon as they catch the fish. So it's not taking the price at the retail level. So you have about 40 lakh tons of fish in 2019, and it's sort of valued at 70,000 crores. So that is marine capture fisheries value and quantity. And then you have a category which often neglected, called the culture-based fisheries production, because this is what happens in states of West Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. You're stocking water bodies with fingerlings, and fishers are catching this fish. Although it appears to be capture fisheries, it's stocked and caught. Therefore, it should be called culture-based fisheries. So this has not really been discussed adequately in the policy space. So that also is about 40 lakh tons, huge quantity of landing from the culture-based fishery, and at a very low price, maybe 20,000 crore is what we estimated. And this is entirely going to feed the rural population of India, especially in the poor kind of states of India. And then if you look at aquaculture, you have both freshwater aquaculture and brackish water. And you produce about 60 lakh tons at farm gate value of 84,000 crores. So you can see that it's a phenomenal contribution of brackish water and freshwater aquaculture. And of this, 650,000 tons is the estimate of 2019, and 800,000 tons or 900,000 tons would be the most recent estimate, as Siddharth had mentioned in this introduction to our session. So that is valued at about 13,000 crore. So if you look at the share of shrimp in total aquaculture production, is about 11% of quantity and 15% of value. So therefore, I think we need to keep this, what is the relative share of different fish production systems and then different species in our discussion, so that we proportionately allocate time and resources to this kind of issues. And then if you put the total landed value plus farm gate value, it's 153,000 crore. And then if you look at exports, again, you can see that 14,000 crore of export value is coming from capture fisheries. And the double of that is coming from aquaculture, mainly from shrimp exports, 28,000 crore. And then quantity also, if you look at the quantity of exports, 1.4 million tons, of which shrimp comprises only 45%. So 55% is comprising fish, mainly from states like Gujarat and Maharashtra, where the large vessels are catching fish of different species and exporting mainly to China. So therefore, 55% is fish export if you look at quantity, and 45% is shrimp from aquaculture. Yeah, mainly Vanamai shrimp, which we introduced from South America. Yeah. So when we talk about culture-based fishery, we are talking about getting fish at 50 rupees a kilo. And if you look at freshwater aquaculture, it's about 133 rupees. And in marine capture fisheries, it's about 175 rupees. And shrimp from shrimp farming is about 200 rupees. So this is the kind of very average unit price of fish in different production systems. Yeah. And then if you look at the gross domestic product of India, I think again, I'm using 2018-19 because then I can compare this figure with states as well. So it's 140 lakh crore is the GDP of India in 2018-19. And as Siddharth also mentioned earlier, it's fisheries contributes about 2.13 lakh crore of this, which is about 1.12%. And if you look at the budget allocation of the fisheries department, it's about 878 crore, and this is what they're allocating. But important to remember that of this 878 crore, 596 crore, or about 68%, is grants and aid to states and union territories. So like, if you remember the previous slide on the union list and state list, it's very clear that, fishery is by and large a state subject. So even when the union government is making an allocation, 68% of the allocation is actually going as grants and aid to states and union territories. And then if you take budget allocation as a share of the contribution of fisheries and aquaculture to GDP, I just did a rough estimate, it's about 0.41% of the union government allocation is the, if you take the share of this budget contribution to as a share of the contribution to GDP, it's about 0.41%. And it's interesting to compare this and see across sectors the contribution to GDP and how much of the budget contribution is coming for that particular sector. So, for example, if you look at agriculture, excluding allied sectors, I think it's about 4 to 5% of budget allocation goes to agriculture. So therefore, you can see that fishery, perhaps, the union government can allocate more funds. Yeah, and then if you look at the state budget, of all the states. In fact, I tried to work out from all the financial budget speeches of different states. So you can see that in the union government is 878 crore, but you see Tamil Nadu government makes an allocation of 1,230 crore. So one state is giving more than the center. And then Kerala, 628 crore. Gujarat is 419 crore. West Bengal is 316 crore. Andhra Pradesh 300. So I have just arranged it in the decreasing order. Orissa is 266 and Bihar 242, Karnataka 234, Uttar Pradesh 192, Jammu and Kashmir 191 crore, then Haryana 116. So it's like that. Goa 87, Puducherry 64. Then the lowest is Telangana, which is about 2 crore allocated. So if you take the total of the state, you can see that 5,135 crore is the state budget. And then if you adjust the 5,135 against the grants and aid from the center, then I think we get about 4,539. So therefore, this is fairly 2.13% of GDP. If you take this contribution as a share of GDP, it's much more than the central government. And then if you combine this 2.13 and the 4.42 I mentioned earlier, so we get about 2.54 as the total kind of percentage of allocation to fisheries of the union government and the state government combined. So I think still it can be higher than what it is captured here. So I would say 4 to 5% would be fairly fair allocation to think of. And then among the state kind of allocation, I've also tried to put the kind of diesel subsidy, that's also just to give an idea, for example, in Gujarat, of the 419 crore, almost half the budget is diesel subsidy for their boats. In Tamil Nadu, it's 142 crore diesel subsidy, 56 crore in Kerala. And I think Kerala, it's for kerosene for the outboard engines, then 50 crore in Andhra Pradesh. I think Maharashtra is also fairly high. I don't have the figures here. Karnataka, 142 crore. Then Goa has 6 crore as kerosene subsidy again for the small scale sector, and 1.34 crore as diesel subsidy in Puducherry. So this is just to give an idea about the state kind of allocation. It's probably the first time that we are trying to put together all the states to see what share of their budget allocation is for fisheries. So then we can put the union and the state together. Also give an idea about 5 years from 1920 to 22-23, 4 years actually. So you can see that in 1920, the central allocation was 651 crore, and then it increased to 878 crore in 2021, and then 1,401 in 21-22, and in 22-23 is 2,118, which Himanshu also mentioned earlier. So you can see that there is a significant increase from 21-22. And then if you look at the Prime Minister's Matsya Sampada Yojana, again, it's interesting. I think although 20,050 crore is the allocation, the central government obligation is 47% of that. That's about 9,400 crore. And the state government has 24%, and the beneficiaries have to make a contribution of 29%. So therefore, and then if you look at the allocation 2021 onwards, you can see that the central government made 600 crore in 2021, then 1,200 crore in 21-22, and it has increased to 1,900 crore in 22-23. And then if you look at the fisheries budget of the union government, you can see that in 2019-20, there were kind of major revisions, because earlier, if you remember, there was talk about integrated development and management of fisheries in 2018-19, but this was withdrawn in 2020-21 when PMM-SY was initiated in 2021. And to kind of jog your memory, PMM-SY also has a provision for resource management, I think mainly on monitoring, control, and surveillance. So I think perhaps the fisheries management component can be also revisited to see how we can talk about community-based management, or to be supported by the scheme. So I think these are areas where some scope for dialogue between the fish worker organizations and the union government exists. And maybe the state government can be the conduit for those assistance to fishing communities to participate in certain management programs. And then another example is Fisheries and Aquaculture Infrastructure Development Fund was announced in 2018, about 7,522 crore. But then you see only some 10 crore was allocated in 2021 and 21-22, and then it slightly increased to 12 crore in 22-23. So this fund sort of, I think, very much not utilized. Maybe it may be interesting to find out why this has been this situation. Is it because of public opposition to creation of infrastructure which they do not want to have in coastal areas and in inland areas? So therefore, I think the important point to remember is that there are various schemes under the state and union government. So when I flagged the issue of fuel subsidies under the state kind of contribution, but I think it may be interesting to bring some greater coherence across different schemes under the state and the union, so that there is a fairly proper thinking behind production, processing, marketing, welfare programs, community participation, decision making in proper data collection analysis. So I think, therefore, this importance of bringing some coherence between state and union government schemes would be very beneficial to small-scale fishing communities in particular. I'm just trying to draw your attention to the fact that there are so many ministries and which may have a bearing on fisheries. So I think we need to also follow the budget allocation and see whether is there any activity which can impinge on you, or are there any activities which can enable you? So therefore, I think we have to say, for example, agriculture and farmers welfare, the ministry, the old agriculture ministry. Even now, CMFRI, CIFT, all are coming under agriculture ministries, not under the Ministry of Fisheries. So therefore, their activities are very important, what allocation are made to those national institutes, and what kind of research are they doing, and how do they look at various issues. Fisheries, CIFT, CMFRI all come under that. So that is, although Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries has been formed, those institutes continue to be part of Ministry of Agriculture. So therefore, you need to see what allocation is made for them. Then, if you look at the turtle issue in Orissa, or any charismatic species, Environment Ministry, marine protected areas, conservation of turtles or shark species. So therefore, their measures are very important: environment, forest, and climate change. Even in freshwater aquaculture, for example, in Koleru Lake in Andhra Pradesh, there was intervention on behalf of this ministry to curtail the freshwater aquaculture activities because of the protected area status of Koleru Lake. And Commerce and Ministry, very important for issues like your trade issues, subsidies issues, in relation to negotiations happening in WTO. Earth Sciences to talk about the bottom of the sea. If you want to establish a cage culture, for example, there are legal implications which would include the bottom of the sea, and there the jurisdiction, to my understanding, would belong to the Earth Science Ministry. So therefore, you need to have some understanding about how do they look at the sea bottom in the territorial sea and the EEZ, and because only fisheries belong to the state, but not the sea bottom belongs to the state. Sea bottom belongs to the union government. So therefore, there are issues related to Earth Science Ministry. External Affairs Ministry is very important when fishermen get arrested in neighboring countries to get them repatriated. Home Affairs for migration issue within the country, or so many issues related to people's movement. Rural development for the human development issues. Labor and employment for decent work issues. Women and child development. Tribal affairs. In fact, some of the components of the state government are from Ministry of Tribal Affairs. For example, I think West Bengal has a fairly large component of funds coming from the tribal affairs kind of stream. So then social justice and empowerment, skill development and entrepreneurship, especially post-harvest activities. The new and renewable energy, if you want to talk about how fish processing and fishing activity can benefit from new technologies under the green kind of a rubric. So then therefore important to see, are there any kind of schemes coming for, to benefit our communities also. For example, replacing the synthetic artificial twines with, natural fibers. Maybe there's some kind of, proposal can be discussed within the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy for that. Minority affairs for different communities, in fishing. Then micro, small and medium enterprises. Water resources, especially if you talk about sharing of water resources between states. Then ports, shipping and waterways, to see to what extent is it a threat or what extent is it an opportunity for the fishing community. And health and family welfare, Ministry of Education. So these are some of the examples I put together so that we are not only seeing the budget from the fishery department point of view. We need to keep an eye on all these different ministries and departments so that we see how far we can benefit from all the schemes, and then try to develop a coherent perspective on different schemes that are offered by different ministries and departments here.